Hey everybody, it's John Hope Bryant, founder, chairman, and chief executive officer of Operation Hope, America's first and only nonprofit financial services network for the poor, the underserved, the struggling class, the teetering class, those with too much month at the end of their money. People like you and me. I'm also the CEO of Bryant Group Ventures, author of 3 books, Love Leadership, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, bestseller, and Banking on Our Future. The next book comes out this September, The Memo, which Andrew Young's going to do an afterword for, and Jim Clifton's doing a forward for. We're talking about the civil rights movement on this series. Thank you for the 20 million folks who have watched the videos, and 200,000 people who liked the page in the last 10 months. We're on a tear here to create a new movement in the suites and not just the streets. I keep talking about this movement being about more class than race. Really, that if you deal with class, you get race for free. That civil rights was in the streets, mostly. Civil rights is going to be in the suites, mostly. How do you get in the suites? How do you forge your way? Because if you hang around 9 broke people, I guarantee you'll be the 10th. But if you hang around 9 mayors, you may be the 10th. You hang around 9 civil rights icons, global leaders, you'll be the 10th. You hang around 9 engineers, you'll be the 10th. You model what you see. So what are you seeing? And do we even know what we're modeling or role modeling? So, by the way, is there a difference between a mentor and a sponsor? We're going to explore that right now in this quick Facebook Live session. Let me say, I'm honored, if you haven't noticed, I'm sitting with 2 bad brothers, 2 legends, 2 mayors of Atlanta. This city is exploding right now with growth. One of the 10th largest economic powerhouses in the nation, Atlanta, Georgia. And really these 2 men and Mayor Jackson really helped to build this city to what it is today, including the largest airport in the world. Mayor Bill Campbell, who was a great man and a charismatic leader and now a businessman and a social justice pioneer. And I saw him last night and he was talking about social justice and empowerment. I saw him this morning and he's talking about the same thing. And I asked him to be in this video. And this is, of course, all of our role model, our mentor, Mayor, Congressman, Dr. King's lieutenant in the Civil Rights Movement. I can't, co-chair of the Atlanta Olympic Games. UN ambassador, I'm sure I missed something. Andrew, preacher, pastor, teacher, Ambassador Andrew Young, who's the closest thing we have living to Nelson Mandela. Yeah, I said it.
Except I didn't go to jail.
You did go to jail.
But Dr. King bonded me out the next morning.
Yeah, Dr. King never wanted Andrew Young in jail. For anybody who's a civil rights aficionado, Dr. King never wanted Andrew Young arrested because they needed him in the suites. They needed him meeting with the business leaders to cut a deal with 100 business leaders in that small town where all the customers were black, by the way, to cut a deal to take down the whites only signs because the business people were hurting in their wallets. That's why the Montgomery bus boycott was so effective.
Did you see that there's a group that's going to ask the immigrants to stay home? I mean,
the immigrant stay home day.
Stay home day.
Can't nobody get nothing
so
done.
You can't. Yeah. That's making it real.
That's making it real.
And that's the kind of demonstration that started our movement. Our first movement wasn't first marked in the streets.
Yeah.
It was withdrawing your support from the bus company.
And
that took 381 days to withdraw under Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King.
Yeah, so for all of you know or don't know, Rosa Parks was not the first lady to say I won't be moved on a bus, but she was the one who brought attention. There was another lady, by the way, you keep talking about, just to give her credit.
She was a high school kid.
No, Boynton. You always want to give credit for Boynton. Right?
No, Amelia Boynton was responsible for voting rights.
Voting rights, right?
Yeah,
okay.
And she went to Selma when she was 19 in 1932.
Okay.
And that's the year I was born.
Right, in New Orleans.
And so she had been in Selma for 25 years, 30 years before Rosa Parks, but it never got any attention. And it really she didn't get a lot even after Selma.
Yeah.
It was almost 50 years later when, in fact, that was one of the things we didn't get in time. she is certainly one of the persons who should have received the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Yeah.
And that's why I say the people who work quietly for a lifetime are the ones you have to remember.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why we wanted to give them some love on this
Yeah.
Facebook Live video, which will get a lot of attention, and hopefully we can give her some recognition and abstention. We also want to acknowledge the power of women in the civil rights movement who never got the credit that they deserved, including Coretta Scott King. Without Coretta Scott King, there'd been no Dr. King, because she spent her life nurturing his legacy after he died.
Because she kind of taught him. I mean, both Jean, my wife, and Coretta came up in Marion, Alabama.
Both.
None of us are any better than our wives.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All the women.
He never would have been. He never could have been mayor without Sharon.
Without a chance.
Yeah. And without my mother, I mean, I wouldn't have been. I wouldn't have been anything because she told me she loved me in my life. Yeah.
Have been, continue to be the backbone of our society.
Yeah.
And we are all very fortunate that they have done so much without the acclaim and really without getting the appreciation they deserve. So,
well, in that example, they were both role models and sponsors.
Sure.
So I want to make sure we stay focused on the topic, because we could do a whole series on civil rights, and all the topics that needs to be discussed. So the point about Montgomery was that while Dr. King and Rosa Parks really, rightly so, got enormous credit for that, it was a whole mechanism that made that work. And
it's like what we get in the press is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
And it was not what was the dogs and the fire hoses. It was the economic withdrawal. 300,000 black folk did not buy anything but food or medicine for 90 days. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say this immigrant stay-home day is probably the beginning of another kind of movement that calls attention to, well, they didn't know they needed us.
Yeah.
And we were financing our own oppression.
By riding the bus that would make you sit in the back.
And shopping at a place wouldn't let you work.
Right. And by the way, none of this was done in anger.
Mm-mm.
So anybody y'all watching, this ain't about, we gonna make somebody pay. No, that hurt people. This was just, they weren't trying to hurt anybody. They're simply saying, look, I'm not gonna give you my money if you treat me like crap. That's all it was.
But Atlanta would not have grown from 300,000 to 6.5 million. I mean, that's what we were about the beginning of the civil rights movement in the 50s. Mm-hmm. And
about white and black working together.
Well, they decided to work together.
That was also about where the population of Birmingham was at that same time. And the fact that Birmingham chose to fight and
over race,
and they've stagnated, and now Atlanta, which chose a different path, the road less traveled, and that's why Atlanta is an economic powerhouse. And even though Birmingham is a lovely city, it's not Atlanta. Hasn't have the economic viability that Atlanta has, and all because of race. One of the great things about this podcast is the fact that you have one of the real living legends, and whether we talk about sponsorships or mentorships, the real issue is the fact that you get an opportunity to talk and listen to someone like Andrew Young, who I always say is like getting a chance to talk to Thomas Jefferson, and he's almost that old, Thomas Jefferson or Abraham Lincoln. Look, you've got Andy Young and John Lewis and C.T. Vivian. These are people that really crafted modern America. They changed modern America. They made it what it is. And the fact that they're still here and lucid and thoughtful, and they're able to talk about why it was and what it was and how it is now, it gives us a real sense of perspective. So I'm just honored to be a part of it. I'm not a living legend. What I am is a person who stands in the great shadow of this incredible human being and those like John Lewis and C.T. Vivian and a host of others. It is really a remarkable opportunity for me, and I hope for you to get the chance to share it as well.
And we're friends. Bill and I are friends. We're also members of Just Brothers Together. It's a group we created. But Bill, I acknowledge Bill as a mentor because Bill ran a city. I never ran a city. And so in that way, he's mentoring me. And when I need some guidance on sort of how to go through the Minecraft of working with a city, I go to Bill and I defer myself to him. I'm saying I'm doing it publicly. So even though we're in the same peer group, I lovingly and respectfully defer to myself as a mentee of him with regard to public service. And Ambassador Young is both a mentor and a sponsor. As I've told you, he's my play father. He's my personal hero. He's a bad brother, and I love him. And that doesn't mean he's perfect. Nobody's perfect. In fact, perfect's boring. if it even existed. It's the perfection of his it's the perfection of his imperfection. The fact that he's comfortable in his own skin that makes him so extraordinary, and he's so approachable. So let's talk about this issue of mentorship and sponsorship. Finish the conversation on Montgomery. Basically, most of the customers of those small towns were black. And what Dr. King did brilliantly was he would march until 2 o'clock and never after 2, because he needed time for the media to get that film on a plane, the plane to New York for 5 o'clock news, because there was no social media back then. It was no digital media. It was just film. And so he brilliantly didn't march after 2. And then when he shut down the economy, he turned it over to the guy he never wanted arrested, Andrew Young. Go put on the suit, Andy. Go meet with 100 business leaders behind closed doors. Don't embarrass them. Cut a deal. Get them to take those stupid signs down. So it's really Dr. King setting it up, and Andrew Young and the other people in the movement helping to pay it off. And that's why they never wanted Dr. King never wanted Andrew Young arrested. And that's why Andrew Young was also the mediator within the civil rights movement between staff. By the way, economics, he was the only one who had a payroll not paid by SCLC. He was paid for by a church through a grant, so he could curse everybody out and not get arrested, which made you an honest broker.
Well, yeah, I am proud that my church sponsored a voter registration program where with Dorothy Cotton and Septima Clark, we organized grassroots leaders from East Texas around to Virginia. And almost every southern county, the elected officials you have now, were people that we taught to read and write, to teach their neighbors to register to vote.
Yeah.
And they could already read.
Yeah.
But they didn't know how to put together a leadership package.
Yeah.
To get change. And so those 6,000-7,000 people that we trained in the 60s were really the foot soldiers that organized these boycotts.
Yeah.
And that's why I say to the young people, nothing that we did we do and dream up ourselves.
Yeah.
C.T. Vivian was doing sit-ins and marches and boycotts in the 40s.
He was with us last night.
And in Peoria, Illinois.
Yeah.
But he could even do that because in 1941, Thurgood Marshall was in New Orleans, where I was in elementary school, and he was arguing for integration of teachers' salaries, equalization of teachers' salaries.
Yeah.
So there was we've been in this movement now, well, at least since, I guess you have to go back to Frederick Douglass and the Freedmen's Bank.
Yeah.
At the end of the Civil War, where you had the Freedmen's Bank, followed up by the 1890 land grant colleges and the missionary colleges. I think Morehouse and Spelman and Howard all about 150 years old now.
Yeah, it all came out of the Freedmen's Bureau Act, which created the schools and the hospitals and the bank that everybody knows
Which
about.
says you can't have integration. It says that we can't solve these problems unless we solve them on every level.
Yeah.
Dr. King said, redeem the soul of America from triple evils of race, war, and poverty.
And to bring it all to a conclusion, let me just say this about Atlanta. In 1895, in Atlanta, they opened up Piedmont Park. Anybody who's been to Atlanta appreciates Piedmont Park. It's like the People's Park. Booker T. Washington spoke at the Cotton States Exposition in 1895 when they opened up the Cotton States Exposition in Atlanta. And he gave his famous 5 fingers on the hand speech, which was widely decried as being sort of a segregationist. Black people could do whatever they wanted as long as they stayed separate from them economically and socially and politically. And that speech so angered W.B. Du Bois and a host of others, they then called the Niagara Movement and brought together all these black intellectuals, and it created the NAACP. All this flowed from the loins of Atlanta, which is why there's no place quite like it anywhere.
You know what I just found out? That the Niagara movement was in part financed by Alonzo Herndon.
Oh my God!
Great insurance magnate.
Yeah, black businessman.
No, he was a great insurance magnate, but it all started out as a barbershop.
Yeah,
he had a
black barbershop.
That where he made his money.
Yeah. I just did a session showing last week. You make $100,000 a year today as a barber. So these are roles. You don't even need to get a college degree to be a barber and make six figures. Let me now pivot before because everybody's got a busy schedule. We did this on the fly. We were meeting about something else. So sponsorship and mentorship. We define this real quickly and then throw it to them. Mentorship is somebody standing to the right of you, to the left of you, or behind you. They're educating you. They're inspiring you. They're giving you attaboys and encouragement, kicking your butt every now and then, getting you back on the right track. Very much like Andrew Young did for me early on in my life. And I'm sure, Bill, you have your own people who mentored you. And they even say, look, listen to me as a reference. A sponsor stands in front of you and kicks the door open, holds the door open, pushes the door open, and says, this is my guy. This is my girl. They're with me. Give them a shot because I say so. And without question, I'm okay in Atlanta today because of Andrew Young. Be clear about that. I mean, I believe in the James Brown version of affirmative action. Open the door, I'll get it myself. But he opened the door, and he believed in me after I proved myself. So let's talk about sponsorship and mentorship.
Well, all of us had sponsors. Dr. Mays was Martin Luther King's sponsor. And he was Maynard Jackson's sponsor. And what he did, his sponsorship was to give him a dirty job. They had to go up in Connecticut and pick tobacco, shade-grown tobacco under a 4-foot net, which meant that they had to crawl in the dirt for 6 weeks in the summer. And Dr. Mays himself was a sharecropper. And he
Benjamin
felt that
Mays.
if you're going to lead people, you got to know what real work is. And it's interesting to me because he could have probably picked up the phone and called Coca-Cola or somebody and got him a desk job. But he figured they needed to understand real work. When my son was 14, I called Herman Russell. And I said, can you give Bo a job for the summer?
Bo Young.
He said, I'm going to make him really work. He gave him a job cleaning up apartments after people moved out.
Yeah.
And there's no dirtier job. He'd come home and my wife would make him stay out on the back porch and hose him down and leave his clothes on the porch before he'd come in.
Yeah.
And but he felt like, he said, Daddy, I feel like I'm a man now.
Well, he's turned out to become a man, and he's running a $20 million business today because you made him work and come up and do the real hard work and not just do the easy work.
And one thing is, he said, I would waste your money on a college degree.
Yeah, by the way, we're not defacing college. We're saying that there's different roads. So the biggest sponsor in here for HBCUs, writing checks and speaking to his 100 honorary doctorates is Andrew Young. He's just saying there are many roads to get to prosperity.
We also talked about the importance of barbers.
We did, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And that this class thing is a big thing for us that we need to get over.
That's right.
We all, and especially
we need folks in suits and boots.
our sisters, though. I was really proud of the lady, black woman, who was the manager of the Marriott Marquis. 3,000 employees under her.
Yeah.
She marries the guy who's the doorman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's my next door neighbor.
Oh, I love that.
But he is a big, handsome brother.
Yeah.
See, who is confident in his manhood.
Yes.
And he awakens her womanhood.
That's a lot of.
But it's no, you don't have to have degrees to succeed.
Yeah. So
I got them.
left-handed says she was a child when in the 60s and remember hearing all the civil rights leaders and activists' names, what they were doing, and mishearing and listening to them. And she thanks you today for doing this, Andrew. Mayor Campbell, what's an example from you for either mentorship or sponsorship?
Well, I don't know anybody that succeeds without having both. You've got to have somebody that operates as a role model, as Andy Young has done for you and for me and for so many. But you also have to have someone who sponsors you to take you to the next level. And that's vitally important. And for so many young African Americans in particular, we need to have sponsors, someone that allows them to move to the next level. It's how business has operated since it began. Someone who recognizes your potential and gives you the opportunity.
Before all y'all start sending letters to Bill Campbell saying, be my sponsor, you got to prove yourself.
Well, you always have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
Look, there's no sponsor that's going to take you if you don't have the ability.
No
free lunch. And the dignity of hard work is invaluable.
Yeah.
So many people decry hard work, but my father worked as a mechanic with the post office garage, and but he was also the president of the NAACP. It just really tells you that no matter how you get there, it's hard work that's going to ultimately be the most important factor. And so when you find somebody that recognizes that you've got both the ability, but also that you've got that gene that says, I want to work harder than anybody else to get ahead, and that person takes you along with them, don't push that person aside because they're trying to pull you along. That's the real opportunity to take you to the next level. So that's what a sponsor is all about. Glad to be a part of this incredible Facebook presentation, and of course, Operation Hope's got its annual meeting coming up, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you here in Atlanta.
So I'm going to leave you with two.
Can I give you some other sponsors?
Yeah, absolutely.
Clarence Avant, Harry Belafonte, and Quincy Jones.
Yeah, Quincy Jones was a sponsor for me.
It was a sponsor for everybody.
Well, Clarence Avant sponsored everybody, including Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
And really quasi-sponsored me, cursing me out on many occasions. He broke my heart. I had to call Quincy, talk about Clarence. Oh, don't worry about Clarence. He's just kidding. And I remember those conversations like they were yesterday, and I can't thank you enough. Let me leave you with two quotes. Quote number one, talking about what Bill said, Mayor Campbell, about work. Only in the dictionary does the word success come before the word work, because it's alphabetical. Every place else, work comes first. So all these little kids running out here who want to go in late, long lunch, and leave early, these millennials who want a flexible lifestyle and full-time pay, y'all smoking something strange. Y'all need to go understand that there's nothing good comes easy, and love is work, non-love is laziness, and anti-love is evil. Evil exists, but it's very rare. Most folks just lazy. They just don't want to do the work. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, physically, you got to show up in life, and you got to hustle. Second thing, Benjamin Mays, the quote Andrew Young inspired in me. Benjamin Mays once said that the ultimate sin is not failure, it's low aim. So if you want to get a mentor, go select them, as I selected Andrew Young to be my mentor. I'll tell you that video. I'll do a special video. It's really funny. On the 10 years I chased Andrew Young. Chased him around the world, buying plane tickets wherever he'd speak. And he ignored me, didn't know who I was for 10 years. I basically gave up, finally introducing another friend to him at a conference, and he introduced me to his son, Bo, and Bo Young. Bo says, why aren't you in Atlanta? I said, I keep trying to get to Atlanta. Later on, Bo calls me, why don't you want to hang out with my daddy? You got something problem with my daddy? He said, I'm trying to chase your daddy. Your daddy don't care about me. You don't know why. He doesn't know why he care about me. So he invites me to lunch with Andrew Young. And Andrew Young ignores me at lunch. Says, I got to go. I said, okay, I'm done. He says, what are you doing after this meeting? I said, nothing. It was a lie. He said, come by my office. I went by. We talked for 5 hours. He put a painting off the wall and gave it to me. It's still a painting, still on my wall at my house today. I fell in love with him that day. I think we fell in love with each other. And he became my mentor that day. And I had to prove myself after that another 5 or 8 years, and then he became a sponsor. And I almost bought a house behind him, but I figured that was a bit too much. But I guess what we're trying to say is go find your mentors. Don't be disappointed if they turn you down a half dozen times or a dozen. They're busy. Prove yourself to them, and they may go and find a mentor. They may become a sponsor too. And then once you do it, lean back and do it for somebody else. Thank you, guys.
Opening.
Peace, light, out.